Brooklyn Borough President Eric L, and everyone knows that I spent 22 years as a police officer, retiring from the captain. And at the beginning of my policing career, I patrolled these stations. I was a transit police officer when the department was divided into 3 separate agencies: transit, housing, and the New York City Police Department. And that's extremely significant to part of this conversation. Policing the subways and policing young people is completely different than any other method of policing. You have to be trained to be in the subway system because of the danger that's involved in the tracks and that's involved in moving around the subway system with large volumes of people that are closely connected. And policing young people takes a skill and a level of patience that's different from any other policing. That's why you have youth officers and you have officers that are assigned to school safety, and they're assigned to involvements that deal with young people. It's a different level of patience. When I looked at the video on Saturday involving the incident at the Franklin Avenue station, and I saw the individuals and the incident with the officers in the Jay Street station, the officers and the students were involved in a physical confrontation. If you look at the video, it was a picture-perfect execution of police officers cordoning off the area so that other passengers are not in danger. You saw officers dealing with the immediate threat of attempting to place someone under arrest. You saw every officer who was there moving in the manner in which they were trained. Particularly, a young girl was being threatened by a crowd, chased into the subway system. Mace was discharged. It was an extreme, chaotic environment. That incident would have happened as officers were trained, except for the actions of one officer. The one officer, I questioned his first punch, and if you look deeper in the video, he was even involved in the initial melee when other officers were attempting to subdue people. He was swinging at the beginning of the confrontation. He was moved away, then he came back again and punched one young man, and while he was assisting in the apprehension of another, he got up and then punched another young man. In my years of policing, I have never been trained to respond to an aggressive, offensive action that we saw this police officer respond to. He took a chaotic situation that police had under control, and he almost turned it into a riot situation based on his actions. If you looked at his actions, each time he made contact with people, he escalated the situation on 3 occasions. If you look at the video, it gives you the impression that there were multiple officers punching young people, and that was not the case. One officer moving in several different encounters, creating chaos in an already chaotic situation. That officer should be placed on modified assignment immediately. Last night, around 11 p.m., I spoke with the district attorney. He looked at the tape. He stated that his office is going to examine what took place. He has a unit in his office that's going to examine the tape and look at the tape. Why is this important? Those officers were street officers, not routinely signed to the transit police. They got a call of service, they went into the subway system, and they responded based on what not every officer received, the level of training of policing the subway system. Second, it is important for us to point out, policing is a dangerous job. We just had an officer released from the hospital today who was struck with a metal chair. Officers, for the most part, are put in situations that are extremely dangerous based on societal issues. the large number of emotionally disturbed persons, the large number of people with mental health issues, the large number of crises, those officers responded in the manner in which they were trained. You cannot have an officer among them acting in a manner that he was not trained to act in. I thought his actions were inappropriate, and I believe the police department should immediately place him on modified assignment, and all those who were involved should ensure that they receive the right training of going into the subway system, responding to a job of this magnitude. I'm truly concerned about what I saw on that video, and I'm glad that the district attorney is going to look at it. You cannot openly punch a young person in the face merely because you are caught up in the aggression of the moment. That is how you have dangerous encounters take place. That situation could have turned into a riot if the other officers there didn't follow the appropriate protocol. And so it is important for us to realize, it's something that is often ignored. Many of those young people we spoke with over the weekend, they're traumatized. We tend to believe that because black and brown young people live in communities where violence exists, that they're used to violence. No, they're not. They're traumatized by what they saw. They're traumatized by the encounters that they witnessed. They're traumatized about the violence in their community. But we also saw something else on that tape. We saw that many of the young people were involving themselves in police interaction, and if you listen closely, there was some that was saying, I know my rights, I know my rights, I know my rights. No, our young people don't know their rights. And that's why we're going to reinstitute what I did as a police officer, what to do when stopped by the police. We have an entire generations of young people that know their interaction from policing that comes from TV, and the real life drama of policing in the city is not a program, it's not a show, it's not a TV series, it's very real. And when police are taking police action, you can't have young people involved in that action because it endangers them and it endangers the police officers as well. And that tape that you saw a very dangerous interaction happen between young people and police, and we're going to reinstitute what we did for thousands of young people in a older generation. We're going to do it with the young people now, because we can't have young people in police at odds with each other during chaotic situations that we saw. The actions of that officer was an embarrassment to the police department. It was an embarrassment to the officers who did what they were supposed to do, and it was an embarrassment to the people of the city of New York, and he should be placed on modified assignment until this investigation is concluded. I'll answer any questions you have. When I was a transit police officer, we rode the trains by ourselves. I started my career riding from 8 at night to 4 in the morning when we were having 20,000 homicides a year and a large number of felonious assaults and robberies. I know what it is to be in the subway system, and in many cases, you are fighting on the train, you're fighting on the platform, no one is there to hear you, you're fighting alone. The only time you should be using an aggressive, offensive action such as punching someone is if you are fighting to prevent someone from hurting you. If you look at the tape, in both cases, actually 3 of the cases, the officer was using a very offensive, punching someone in their face. The goal is to subdue someone, not to get in a boxing match. That officer used that level of aggressive behavior that was something that I was never trained to do. The goal was to subdue, and those officers who were there, that's exactly what they were doing. Even as they were rolling on the ground, they were doing it to subdue the person and not to get into some type of fist altercation. Okay, these are many of the young people who they were in the station of the day of the incident and that reached out to me. The young man that was actually struck, he's navigating traffic to get here now, but one of the young people the Queen wanted to just read a comment based on a lot of these young people, as I stated, who are traumatized over this event. And I think sometimes that their voices are not heard and they don't get an opportunity to talk about how they feel when they see encounters like this. Tomorrow, we're going to be holding a what to do when stopped by the police interaction. I reached out to some of the old members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, and they're going to hold a series of these conversations to teach young people on how to interact or when they have an interaction with police. As I indicated, this is something that is not taught in school, often it's not taught at home, and when these encounters happen, we're always being reactive instead of proactive, and we're going to reinstitute what we did many years ago to this new generation of young people. These are our children, and what happened in that subway over the weekend is something that should not happen in this city. And so the Queen wants to just share her thoughts on the behalf of all of these young people who are here. And these are good scholars. They go to good schools. They are doing good things with their lives. And, you know, sometimes how they're depicted is not as though these are everyday American children. And they do things that American children do. Some of the things we may not like, some of the things we may dislike, but no matter what they do, they should not be punched in the face because of the behavior of children. The Queen?
Thank you very much. Is it on? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Borough President Eric L, for giving us this press conference and giving young people a platform to be heard. My name is DeQueen Roberts. That is DeQueen Roberts. I am a 15-year-old, and I am a current student at Science Skills High School. I'm also a current student, a part of the program called ASET, and this program focuses on helping high school young ladies develop as leaders and scholars. I am an older sister of 2, and it pains me to think about them ever being wrongfully arrested and assaulted by the NYPD. I am here today to voice my opinion on behalf of my fellow peers. On the afternoon of Friday, October 25th, a brawl broke out between 2 groups in the train station of Jay Street-Metrotech. While the NYPD were trying to get this situation under control, one officer abused his power and not only wrongfully arrested an African-American teenager that had nothing to do with what was occurring, he also punched him in his face. There was a recording of the original video of this incident, and it was submitted to a variety of news networks. Unfortunately, this video was edited to make the young man look that he was in the wrong and the officer look that he was just trying to do his job. This video can be found on different social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We are not blaming all officers that were there for what occurred, but although they could have tried to handle it differently. However, we are tremendously upset about the officer that handled this situation in an uncivilized manner and attacked the teenager. We are also furious about the 2 supervisors that were present during this incident and allowed the officer to continue attacking and harassing the teenager that was simply walking past. This misconduct and unprofessional behavior of the NYPD officer should never be tolerated in their job description. The NYPD should protect all the people of this city. We will not accept any assault against any teens or anyone of race, class, or sexual orientation. The NYPD publicly demonstrate prejudicial child abuse, which is unwarranted. Last week I read that a special term, Last week I read that a special team of subway police will not be having body cameras I say that all police should have body cameras. We also want Know Your Rights workshops to be placed in high schools, as well as information on how to interact with police. But while we are trying to learn how to survive some, they should be given extended diversity training to officers on how to interact with young people especially. You shouldn't work as an officer in any community that you fear the people. We are the future of this nation, so please treat us like it. Thank you.
Very well done. They're gonna wanna ask. Thank you. Very well done. Okay. Very well done.
I was not present in the train station when this occurred, but I know people that was there, and it was people close to me that was affected tremendously. And when I saw the video, it actually broke me down into tears. Yes, I do know the young man personally. Any other question? Huh? He's 15 years old. I'm a junior, 11th grade. I'm 15 years old. You're welcome.
Yes.
Amy.
Amy.
Hello, my name is Amy Barnett. My name is Amy Barnett. I have been friends with one of the boys that was affected by this incident for a while, and I can speak for everyone when I say it is not in his nature to be violent. Seeing him get assaulted and jumped by police officers made me feel sick. I contacted the press and asked him to report the incident on TV so that we can attract the attention of public officials, such as our borough president, to help my friend and hold the officer who assaulted him accountable. I watched my own family speak up for my cousin who was shot in the face by an NYPD sergeant, which contributed to his firing from the force. I could not help but show the same consideration and dedication for my friend Benjamin. We hope that he makes a full recovery and the police department takes necessary and just action against the offending officer. We ultimately hope that the NYPD can learn from this tremendous mistake and start to train their employees accordingly so an incident like this will never happen again. AMYBARNETT. Benjamin, he was wearing the white sweater, and if I don't think the news reported it, but on social media, the police officer came to him and punched him in the face. That was my friend Benjamin.
That was the second one.
Yes, he was the one that walked, and the officer got up and snatched him. Marshall.
I go to Science Skills Center High School. Science Skills Center High School. I'm in 12th grade. Benjamin is 15.
Anyone was on the show that wants to speak? Yes.
This is somebody that was in the train station.
Okay. Just say your name, okay?
All right. Hi, my name is Sebastian Antoine. I was one of the students that was in the train station. I was across the platform watching everything occur. It was really emotional for my friend that I knew ever since he entered high school. He came to me like a brother, so I wouldn't say I've been taking care of him as much, but as like, whenever he needed something, he would always come to me for it. So for me, I heard somebody say somebody got hit, and I'm looking around. I couldn't really see who it was, so I'm just like, I'm not there to even try to see what happened or try to stop it. For me to come home and people are texting me telling me, oh, Benjamin the one that got hit, Benjamin's locked up. I'm like, why? So once I see the video and see that he tried to walk away from the altercation that had nothing to do with him, for him to get assaulted like that, that's unjust in so many multiple ways, because due to the fact that he wasn't a part of the brawl. And multiple people would say, oh, well, if it's not your business, don't be there, right? Walk away. That's exactly what he tried to do. He had his hands in his pocket. He wasn't a threat to anybody. And all he tried to do was walk away, like most people would suggest. So for him to be assaulted from walking away from a situation that has nothing to do with him, what can we say for that? Like, that is just, I don't even know what to say anymore, to be honest. It was just, I've been shaken up about it this entire weekend, hearing other people talk about it, saying, oh, what they did was right, this and that. No. Especially for the people to say that they weren't there, to say what was right and what's wrong, and they do not know what happened before or after, for them to have like a perception of that just makes me feel sick inside myself. Knowing exactly what happened, it's just, I don't know what to say anymore. That's all.
I think it's important to point out, Amy, right? As you know, and sometimes we just don't really get this. Amy's cousin was shot in the face by the police. Then she sees a friend who's punched by the police. Then we send the police out to recruit these young people to become police. We've created an atmosphere where these young people are traumatized by violence, and because a small number of people in their communities commit violence, when we see them, we feel violence. These are articulate, young people. The programs they're in, the schools they're in, their grades are good grades. These are everyday American children that have been demonized just by their presence, just by their look, just by the way they dress, just by how they enjoy themselves. And it's just wrong. And when people saw the initial report, they said, well, you know what, they had to have been doing something. No, they were not. They were doing what young people do. This is what young people do. And because they were doing what young people do, you're not allowed to do what young people do if you come from the communities that they come from. That's what they're saying. That is exactly what they're saying. And they should not have to live in that way. And I thank you for coming out and speaking, because you should not be silent. Your voices should be heard. And it's important that your voices are heard. So
Borough President Adams just said they were doing things that young people do. From the edited video that News 12 posted, there were comments on different social media platforms, mainly Facebook. And most people said, do you see how teenagers act in the subway as they go home every day after school? And one of my comments were, the generalizing of teenagers' behavior in the train station after school does not justify a 15-year-old African-American being punched in his face. It doesn't justify it.